All Three Beards Media podcasts originate from the Gravitate Co-working Studio, sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company.
Welcome back to In the Side of the Storm, where we talk all things Cyclones. We are coming to you live from the Gravitate Co-working Studios and sponsored by Revelton Distillery out of Osceola, Iowa. I'm Dave Larson here with Storm Team partner and Cyclone great Marcus Pfizer. Good evening, Marcus. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. How about yourself?
Well, I'm doing a little bit better. I've heard some stories about some of the pains that you're going through right now with involving black mold. That's never a good thing, and hopefully they can get that cleared up here very shortly.
Yeah, dealing with kids and having to relocate and yada 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 is tough to deal with. I mean, you know, the words of the day are already bad enough, but you know, moving parts and all of that. I mean, it even affects the way that you eat. You know, feed the kids and all of that. So it's been a stressful day, but I mean, we're here.
Well, and I'm glad to be back last weekend in Atlanta with 25,000 cheerleaders in one venue. And by the time you add in all the coaches and the family members and the aunts and the uncles, it had been over 100,000 people that were there throughout the weekend. And it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, I was glad to be back Monday late afternoon.
Yeah, my daughter used to do the dance and all that different stuff when she was younger. She's 15 now. So probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when she was a lot smaller than what she is now. We used to, you know, get in the van wherever the trip was, even if we had to fly somewhere or whatever, we would try to rent a minivan. And if she wasn't on stage and I was outside laying down, you know, watching the game or something, trying to take a nap. But it is hectic when you're on the inside of there. And then you talking about basketball and sports, that's the biggest cash cow in the world.
I think cheerleading's not very far behind. You know, these girls, and they're, for the most part, it's young ladies, but and there are some guys that participate as well. But it's I can't believe the money that you spend on just getting in the door. Yes. We didn't have to deal with parking, but all the hotels and everything, because it's a pay for play. And you're familiar with that with the competitive basketball side, where you have to stay in these designated hotels. But it's a lot of fun. These girls are so talented and so athletic, and they're doing things that just amaze me every single day. That I'm part jealous, but yet at the same time, I admire from afar, because I simply would never try to accomplish or try to do some of the moves that they do.
Right. I mean, you know, you talking about the competitive nature of the kids, the parents. The parents be worse, you know. They be so into it and so forceful, and I'm like, man, I'm not gonna be like that on my kid. Like, if it turns into something, it does. If it doesn't, you know, now my daughter, she's about 5'7", 5'8", so you know, she's growing too tall to be into that anymore. But it's real hectic, you know. It can get really, really hectic, but at the same time, you know, it's for the baby, so we got to get up and do it. We got our prop dad shirts and stuff like that where we helping, and you know, the dad's always behind the scene and stuff like that. So
our jobs, something like that, is just to carry the bag and then pay for everything, right?
Pay for everything and be the muscle.
That's right. So big weekend this weekend with Cyclone Athletics, men's game and women's game Saturday. I actually attended the women's game, and then today we had the final wrestling match held at Hilton for this year, and for David Carr, who actually won by a fall. Cyclones overall won 41-3 over Missouri. David Carr pinned his opponent in the first period. Well, wait, that's a way to go out with a bang. His record ended up being 67-0, undefeated at Hilton Coliseum throughout his career. He's 112-4 all time. Younger Batista at 285 ended up with a win as well. He is 20-0 on the season. Boy, that wrestling program continues to make good headway as they look towards the postseason.
Yeah, I was speaking with one of my friends the other day, matter of fact, yesterday, and we were talking about wrestling. He said, because everyone that comes up to me, they're always talking about sports and things like that. I mean, a little shorter guy, I never got into basketball, and I'm like, no shit. He's like, I was always a wrestler and things like that. And I was like, I went to, to school with, arguably the greatest, collegiate wrestler in history, and Kel Sanderson, and he knew who he was. We talked about it a little bit and everything like that. And, as we know, that program has been for decades one of the top programs in the country. And, it's very exciting to see.
So do you have one of those Wheatie boxes with that came out with Kale on it?
I wish I did. I wish I did. I never even saw one. Because had I saw one, I would have, grabbed one. And, back in that time where I was, a lot younger and didn't have, the kids around me, and the wife got back to campus a lot more than we do now. I definitely would have gotten one and got some signatures on it for sure. So that's one of the things that I hate I never was able to do.
Somewhere in this basement, I've got one, and I think I still have it bagged up where the cereal's still in the box.
That's big time right there. I don't even think I've ever even eaten Wheaties before in my life.
Really?
No, I mean, I couldn't even tell you what they tasted like. I just, knew the significance of the athlete being on it and things like that. But I couldn't even tell you if it tastes like cornflakes or some kind. I mean, shit, it's Wheaties, so I guess it tastes like some kind of like wheat cereal. I don't think I've ever had it.
Yeah, it's a Wheatie version.
It like wheat cornflakes. I always said it tastes like wheat cornflakes.
All right, so have you had Raisin Bran?
Yes.
Okay, so imagine Raisin Bran without the raisins. That's probably the closest thing to it.
Okay. Well, I love Raisin Bran. Even with or without the raisins, I love the cereal itself. So,
well, maybe this will be something that Chris and Caitlin talk about on their next episode of Like Father, Like Son, or Daughter. So, we'll be looking forward to that. Yesterday, the Iowa State women's basketball team, I was able to make it up there to Hilton Coliseum to watch that game. They beat up on BYU. BYU, not exactly a good team, but the Cyclones came out. The big news, though, Audi Crooks took over sole possession of first place with the all-time freshman scoring record at Iowa State. Boy, she looked really good yesterday, just dominated down in the paint. Emily Ryan looked fantastic. Really, the entire team looked great from my perspective. I don't know if you watched too much of the women's game, but Ariana Jackson, just defensively, her hands were everywhere. And I love that she caused a lot of turnovers by being in the right place at the right time, or just sticking her hand in there to knock the ball away or cause disruption. So the women now, let me see here. I wrote it down. They're now 16-10 on the season, 10-6 in the Big 12, which if you would have told me that at the very, very beginning of the season, with 5 freshmen basically playing the majority of the minutes, and right. Emily Ryan was shelved early on, I would have said, sign me up for that. So Bill Fennelly definitely has his team in the right direction.
Yeah, without a doubt. We always know, what kind of product he's going to put out on the floor. Even with, incoming freshmen coming in that has to learn the game and things like that on that level. We always know he's going to put out a competitive product out on the floor without a doubt. So it's no surprise. I don't get to see them as much as, I would like. If I happen to catch that they're on, absolutely, I'm watching it. If it has to be on my phone and turning it sideways so I can watch it. Audi, she's a freshman that really came in with a lot of potential, and she's showing why she had all those accolades coming in. So I look forward to seeing her, have a really, really promising career at Iowa State and breaking a ton of records. That's going to be a lot of fun for the next 3 years.
Yeah, so she took over for Megan Taylor, who was a freshman, 97, 98. So she was one of your contemporaries.
Yeah. Megan, me and Megan, we first came in together, and I tell this story all the time. We used to go to the rec and shoot, and Megan was a shooter, So me, not so much as a freshman, coming in, I really wasn't able to find my stroke until later on, and I got some more games up under my belt, but we used to go to the rec and shoot against each other, and she used to wear me out. I started playing one-on-one and backing her down. I was like, you're not going to keep beating me all these games because you shoot from the outside. But, I mean, that's great to see that another young lady has came in and, with the competitive spirit to shoot for a record. And, that records are made to be broken, and that's great to see.
Yeah, she's from that original Twister Sisters group, and I got to admit, I had a little crush on her as a player. She fantastic ball player and hard worker, and hate to see the record being broken, but that's why you set records. They're intended to be broken, right?
Absolutely. That's what I look forward to all the time. I mean, I was gunning for records, and I'm sure everyone else is gunning for records as well.
What particular record were you going after at Iowa State, or even when you played in the NBA? Was there one that you had your eyes set on?
Well, no particular ones. I mean, of course, had I stayed for 4 years, then without a doubt, that scoring record would have been crazy more than what I was able to accomplish in 3. I would have loved to get more rebounds and things like that, steals and blocks. I mean, I was a shot blocker in high school, but, once I got to college, guys got a lot bigger and things changed a little bit. So I wasn't able to accumulate a lot of those. But, any records that was out there to be able to, take down a lot of the Big 12 records, freshman scoring record. Then my best friend from high school, Bernard King, at Texas A&M, he ended up coming in after me and knocking that record off. And so, the Big 12 tournament records that I had, my good friend, rest in peace to him, Andre Emmett, ended up breaking that, and we were teammates a few times as pros. So, like you said, records are made to be broken. To be able to knock those down is always a great thing to see. And if you're the one that's holding those records, of course, during those games, you watching it, kind of nervous or whatever, but eventually it's going to happen.
So the women play Wednesday night at Kansas State. As you recall, they ended up playing on Valentine's Day. That was a double overtime game. So that should be a heck of a game coming up on Wednesday night. And then Saturday, back home for senior night against Cincinnati. Actually, it's senior afternoon at 1:00. Both of those games should be on ESPN Plus. So make sure that you have a chance to watch that, although you'll have to navigate through all of your transitioning between spaces with your movement, shuffling back and forth.
Hulu is on the phone. If I can catch it on Hulu, I just pop it on and turn the phone sideways and watch it from there.
No, there you go. So let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor, Revelton Distillery.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip, and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. The great thing about working from home is working from home. The worst thing is working from home, especially for face-to-face collaborations with customers and coworkers. And let's face it, coffee shop meetings are neither private nor professional. So skip the trip to Starbs and investigate Gravitate Co-working Space. For more than 10 years, Gravitate has provided large and small office and conference spaces perfect for hosting meetings, workshops, or other events, as well as private phone booths for confidential conversations. Plus, all spaces include secure fiber internet, free coffee, and access to a kitchenette. All you need is your laptop. Gravitate does the rest. And renting space at Gravitate is surprisingly affordable. An hour of office space costs about the same as venti caramel macchiatos and breakfast sandwiches for two. Daily and monthly rates are also available with no long-term commitment. Learn more at gravitatecoworking.com. That's gravitatecoworking.com.
All right, and we're back. Marcus, you showed us your you've got your Rebelton there in front of you tonight to try to get rid of whatever ails you tonight.
Yes,
that's
sir.
The honey whiskey too, right?
No, the honey whiskey. This is the rye whiskey. The honey whiskey I had before.
All right.
It's a lot sweeter, a lot better than the rye whiskey. That one is a little tougher than what I'm used to.
All right, we'll get out to your stores on that. Now, some news and notes. Former women's basketball player Stephanie Suarez is back in the WNBA. As you recall, she had a ACL injury that occurred towards the end of last season. She still was drafted by the Dallas Wings. She has since signed and is preparing for the WNBA season. I think she had spent most of this early part of the women's season as a coach in the Wings, literally, with Fennelly and the team. So that's good for her. Gabe Kalsher has signed with the Iowa Wolves. So for those of us in Des Moines, we're able to get out and catch some Wolves game and see him, and hopefully we'll see him up with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Gabe was previously with the Capital City Go-Go's. Is that right? Did I write that down correctly? Which is the Wizards G League. I actually had attended that game when he was in town for that. Barely played. So I'm glad that he's with the Wolves. Hopefully he'll be able to get some good quality minutes in, and the T-Wolves will give him a shot. The T-Wolves, by the way, out of Minnesota, traded for our friend Monte Morris. So Monte is now with the Timberwolves. I've seen him. I haven't caught any of their games yet, but look like I've seen some things online where he's been getting some minutes. So that's definitely good to see. And then let's see, volleyball head coach Christy Johnson Lynch has signed on through the 2028 season. This is something that I found really incredible. The Iowa State volleyball team has been to the NCAA tournament 17 times. 16 of those times have been under Christy Johnson Lynch. So that looks like a good signing there by Jamie Pollard to go ahead and keep her and retain her within the Iowa State fold. Glad to have her on board and continuing to lead that program. Big week this week, though. TJ Tampa has been invited to the NFL Combine, which is going to be taking place. I looked it up, and it looks like the media availability for defensive backs will be Thursday. And then on Friday is when the defensive backs will have their drill. So all of that will be on the NFL Network. You can be able to watch the NFL Combine and catch TJ Tampa participating in that. Other football news, though, that I really did not want to see, and I don't think anyone else did either, but Nate Schillhouse is off to the NFL. Wish him sincerely the best of luck, and I think we saw a lot of the progress that the offensive unit made under his leadership in his first year as an offensive coordinator, but now he gets to go learn from Sean McVay with the LA Rams as their passing game coordinator, and who knows, maybe he'll still come back at some point. There's been a lot of talk about him perhaps being the head coach in waiting if Matt Campbell were ever to leave. But wishing the best of Nate Schillhouse. Still waiting to hear back on who's going to replace him as the offensive coordinator. And we should know a little bit more in the next week or so. With spring practices coming around the corner, we got to have that position filled.
Yeah, congratulations to him for sure. I mean, we hate to see him go, but we totally understand that that's an opportunity for him to move up and, do some other things in his career. And we wish him the best. Godspeed, without a doubt. And we'll see what happens in the years to come.
Is that something we've talked about this before with Coach Floyd going on to the Bulls? Is that something that, as players, are you applauding that? I know at one time, the transfer is so different than it was back then.
Right.
So that wasn't really something that you were looking at. But in today's game, I think I'm a little nervous with the quarterback situation there, and the potential that, hey, would there be some wandering eyes? Is there going to be a focus, do you think, on retaining some of the coaching staff and getting some of the player input? Is that something that at the college level that Matt Campbell might be looking at?
Well, now it's a dynamic that, so amongst us all, in every sport, pretty much. It's a lot more prevalent than it was back when I played. Like you said, I wasn't even, once the opportunity presented itself for Coach Floyd, which we were hearing that it probably would have presented itself before I even came in. So after my freshman year and it occurred, I didn't have any ill will or anything like that. I understood that it was an opportunity. I mean, I was here playing collegiate basketball with the aspirations or the hopes of going to the NBA. If that would have occurred, before my 4 years was up, and ultimately it happened. So I wouldn't want anyone to try to hold me back from that, decision as well. So it was something that occurred, and things that's going to occur, more prevalently now with what we're dealing with the, NIL and transfers and all that stuff. So players do think about it a lot. It's something that, I would think that they think about each and every day now with how everything is going. It's like the free agency of pro sports, but it's the collegiate sports now because so much money has been thrown around in it. So it was easier on us. It's a lot more stressful on them now. I can imagine, how they're thinking, but it's something we're just going to have to, try to fight through.
So former Kansas State running back or quarterback, Jake Waters was promoted up to take over as running backs coach. I think that there's been some talk of Ryan Clanton taking over the OC responsibilities. I understand he may have been calling some plays that year that we technically did not have an OC. Mm-hmm. And apparently he called plays for UNI when he was up there. So we'll learn a little bit more about that probably in the next week or so. And none too soon. I don't know if you saw as well, but they announced the spring game at Jack Trice is going to be held on April 20th. Kind of a unique day to select a spring game on 420. But that's the date that has been
that
selected.
Should be a fun one. That should be a fun one for a lot.
Yeah. So we should know a lot more by then. All right, men's basketball. I really enjoyed the discussion that you and Brent had last week in terms of talking about those big games that come up, that your focus was just the next game and that you didn't really think about it being a big game. It was just another game.
A game.
So do you think that that's something that it's more profound with us as fans, that we make a bigger deal out of it than the players? Or is that something that the players sort of look at, hey, it's Big Monday, it's against second or third rated Houston? You don't really look at that in the same way that we do?
No, not at all. Because you can't, like, as a fan and as a player, like, the whole preparation is totally different, for the fans and everyone watching, and it's fun, but as a player, man, it's the most stressful thing ever, because it's an entire game of total focusness and with a game that big, you're just trying to get that profound win. And even if you don't get that win, we even spoke about the predictions and everything like that. I felt like it was going to be a tough win to get against Houston, and we ultimately didn't win that one, but it was a close one where, that's promising. I would have loved to have, won that Colorado game that we lost in overtime and an Oklahoma game also. But, it was better for us to go through that fight and typically not come out with a win, but take away from the loss what we took away from, rather than being undefeated in the conference. That wasn't as important to us, other than to learning the things that, because if you play a perfect game against a team like that on the road and they still got to take you to overtime to win, and it's close, even if it's in regulation. That's for you and your program. That's a win, because on a neutral floor, or if they have to come back into your home, we're gonna get that one. So it's more of a building block going down the road, and to have faced Houston twice this year, played them extremely well at home, lost a close one on the road. I think TJ is pretty, and the group of coaches are pretty good with that result.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that. That was a slugfest. Honestly, it reminded me of the Eustacia years where you guys would score about 50, 55 points, and it was all defense, and it was in your face. And it really resembled that. I don't think we played particularly well.
Right.
And considering that it was as close as it was for most of that game, I, as a fan, felt like, hey, we played pretty well. Houston had not lost a game by less than 15 points at home. And for us to come in there and almost pull it out, and even though we did not play well, I feel pretty good that we have some building blocks that, should we face them in the Big 12 tournament, that will do us well at that point in the year.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, not thinking about what the fans thinking and wanting, and just what our game plan and preparation is. Eustacia's motto and everything was, we're going to shoot more free throws than the other team attempt. And for that to happen, you got to get to the line. You got to get to the paint. You got to play hard-nosed defense. And a lot of times that's just how it was. We weren't looking to, score a ton of points. Now, if that permitted itself, if I went on a scoring tangent and Mike Nurse was making threes and Kentrell and Jamal was doing what they do, that's going to happen. But we knew once we got to the crest of the Big 12, that typically wasn't going to be the ingredients to winning the game. We had to do what we had to do to win the game. And, after those games, it was a lot of sore bodies, bruises and things of that nature. But that's what we had been accustomed to, and we understood that was a part of it. And at that point, we were just, playing to win the ball game. It was some really, really tough, promising teams in the Big 12 coming around that last, corner of the season, and that's where we're at now. So that game against Houston, I was on the edge of my seat watching. To be that close was, real stressful. But like I said, I would have absolutely loved to win, but I'm not as down on the loss as it was, against like a BYU or something like that. That wasn't the type of loss that was. The game that loss against Houston, we know if we run into them again at the Big 12 tournament, then we know it's going to be, even for us and for them, and we feel like we can pull that one out.
So I kind of asked that question because as a backdrop, I looked at the records of our remaining schedule, and even with West Virginia, who is sitting in last place in the Big 12, we don't play anyone that has a 500 record or better than a 500 record the rest of the way in the Big 12 play. Now, with that said, we play Oklahoma, who we did lose to, and we also play BYU, who we also lost to. So I think we've got a little bit of revenge on hopefully we've got some revenge on our mind. And then we also play at UCF, who doesn't look exceptionally good either. We do get a chance to play at Kansas State, and we saw what's happened with Jerome Tang and Wildcats. Since we played them, they pretty much have fallen apart. But I guess, from a player perspective, do you start looking at the schedule? Do you look at the wins and losses and go, hey, we can play, we can beat that team, or this one's going to be tougher. The rest of our schedule, we don't play anyone over 500. Do you start looking at that as a player, or is that something that you're just completely oblivious to?
Well, I think the guys have gotten to a point in the season where they know their game and know where we're at and where we're standing. It's not like we lost to the University of Iowa last year, and now we get them this year, and so we want to beat them down. I think the BYU and the Oklahoma game is going to pretty much take care of itself for how good that they're playing right now at this point. And it's just not that it's going to be a cakewalk, but to them it's going to pretty much feel like a cakewalk because we know how solidified we are as a team right now. Going down to Florida, get that win. It may be a little bit more tougher than the games at home, but I think that should be one that we should knock out pretty well. And like I said before, I'm always scared of K-State. Like, it's just always that dynamic of being down there in that state and, in the city of Manhattan and what they do down there. You never know what product they're going to put out on the floor. So that's, to me, is going to be the biggest test remaining of the season, even though it's not going to, make or break the season. But that one right there will solidify, how we go into the tournament.
So as we sit today, we are at 21-6 on the season. I believe 10-4 in Big 12 play, just sitting a game behind Houston. I think that from the rest of the schedule, I was glad to see that we came back on Saturday and beat West Virginia. Made me a little bit nervous.
A little bit, yeah.
We got up, then West Virginia came back in the second half. It became a lot more closer of a game than I was expecting at all. And we ended up going on that run to put them away. But you've got to win games like that, right? Especially
Right. So one of my good friend, Chad Parr, he reached out and wanted to take his family to the game and everything like some weeks ago about it. And so, we text and communicate, back and forth. And, the game came and, it was a game what it was. We even had a conversation last night. I said, man, I'm glad we held on. Because they would have lost that one, I probably would have blamed that one on you. I didn't tell them that, but, I'm glad we held on is what I told them. But, it's just one of those games that, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like it's the Big 12. West Virginia have strong and competitive teams. And if you don't focus the whole entire game, you'll find yourself being down where you now have to focus and turn it up. And, those are the things that you got to be more mindful about, because in college sports, if it's hard to get that momentum back. Once they're rocking and rolling, it doesn't matter if it's on a home or on the road. Once they're rocking and rolling, it's hard to try to get that momentum back. And when it gets that way, you just don't want to put yourself in that hole. I'm sure TJ wasn't happy at all.
Yeah, I think it's something he can use as a motivator. Mm-hmm. Hey, if you guys aren't careful, you can lose to the last place team in the Big 12. That would have been really embarrassing of a loss.
Especially
West Virginia's, especially at home. And West Virginia is in a bit of a disarray with Huggins,
right?
In the coaching change at the beginning of the year, working under an interim coach. West Virginia, they came in and they about pulled it out in Hilton. So I give them credit. But again, I would say second place team in the Big 12, they have to win those games. There's just no excuse for them not to.
They got to play better than that, for sure.
Yeah, but again, I love, and I've said this before, I love this team. I love the scoring. I love the defense. But scoring can come from anywhere, whether it's from the outside, from guards, from the big guys. We can go 4 out and put Rob Jones in the middle, or we can put Jones in, Hassan Ward in, Trey King in. I love those lineups. They're athletic. They're physical. I just love the dynamics of this team, the different looks that you see that they can pull out against any team.
Yeah, it always start with guard play. I know, a lot of people talk about the scoring that I did or whatever, but I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for Jamal Tinsley, that literally would have been maybe 7 to 8 points or 10 points less. The toughness of Mike Nurse and, Contrell Horton as, the 2-3 combo guards on the wing and things like that. Like, your guard play is what gets you into the offense and also gets you into the defense. And when they're playing extremely well, that makes you as a big want to support them, do some of the things to help them out. And once the guard play is playing extremely well, then, it makes it a lot easier for the bigs where you can, get in the dunker spot or you can float over to the 3 and the pass is coming there. The shots are coming a lot easier. And then when they're up top playing defense, if once they're beaten, you don't want to be that weak link on the defensive end and in the paint where you're not helping out. So it's all a team dynamic that comes together. And when you're rolling like that, you're definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Well, we had those early season losses in Florida to Texas A&M, and there was a second game that was back to back. This team has really come along. TJ's got them working. I love the team. The ball rotation too is another thing that these guys seem to enjoy playing together, and you can tell by the passes and the number of assists that they're making off the scores.
Yeah, those early season losses, it's always a surprise of even what you're dealing with. Me personally, like we're coming off of, I don't guess you call it training camp, but training and running and suicides and all of that at the beginning of the year. And then, you run into a Drake University where, neither one of you guys score 50 points. You're going to run into those type games early on. But those are the ones that you either get or you don't get. You run into a University of Cincinnati, that was the number one team in the nation at the time, and then you're able to gauge, okay, now we are able to figure this out. So losing to those teams early really didn't make anything to me. Of course, I would have rather to have that as a W, but those different tournaments, on islands or different places like that really don't mean anything, because we know the crest of the Big 12 is what carries the most weight, and we're performing.
So ultimately, we did win Saturday against West Virginia, 71-64. Wednesday night, a return trip by Oklahoma to Ames. We lost down there 71-63. So this is a good opportunity to get a game back. And then next Saturday, we go to UCF. And then the following Wednesday, another BYU, again, a chance to run one back. We lost to them in Provo 87-72. That's a game where BYU was just shooting lights out from 3-point range, and we didn't really have an answer against that. Then Saturday the 9th is that game at Kansas State, and I'll be curious to see how that game turns for us down there. I think that could be a good game, because depending upon what Houston does in the next 3 games, that could be a very significant game for the Cyclones.
Yeah. And even so much, like, God forbid that's a game that we don't win. Again, if we've been playing well, we understand that is the road of the Big 12. I don't foresee us not winning that game. I see us like going in as focused as we were when we went down to Austin and beat the brakes off Texas. So that kind of game is what I'm looking for to our guys putting out there on the floor, and TJ having the guys really ready to roll.
Any preference on seeding? I think that as long as you get the double bye or the byes in playing on Thursday and one of the top 4 seeds, to me, that's the most important part at this point. I want a top 4 seed. I'd love to have the number 1 seed, but at the end of the day, I don't know that there's that much difference between 1, 2, and 3.
Right. And that's the thing, like being able to get down there, get off the bus, get your legs up in the hotel, being able to prep, and just relax and wait to see what the next round is going to be is definitely better than playing on that first night. But I mean, we've been that team that's played on that first night and ran the tables and won it all. But that's a lot more stressful than everyone in Cyclone Nation wants. Definitely a lot more stressful than I'm sure that TJ wants. But having one of those top seeds is definitely something that we're gunning for. It's for us is to lose or to win. So let's finish the season out strong like we're supposed to, and handle business like we're here to do.
One of the big changes this year at the Big 12 tournament, and we'll probably talk more about that in a couple of weeks, though, is that the women's tournament used to run concurrently with the men's, and now the women are going first, and I think there's going to be a little bit of overlap. When you were playing, did you get a chance to see any of the women's games and go cheer them on, or vice versa?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't at all. We would have rather had that opportunity, but when they're playing, having access to be it, get into the gym or prep for the games, we just didn't have that opportunity to. We saw more games during the year before we got to the Big 12 tournament because, like I said, I mean, I was always a fan of Coach Finley, since my freshman year, and just seeing how good they were. I actually went to practices and games and wanted to, be as good as they were. So whenever I got the chance to watch the games and the games were at home, I definitely, attended. If I wasn't tired from, the quote unquote sanctioned hours of practice Larry Stacey put us through, but no, we never got a chance to down at the Big 12. We just always paid attention to and asked questions and, hearing about the women winning. And then if they won before us, now it's our time to go out and represent it. So it was always a good thing for them to have success and be down there and us having success and, everyone being mad at the Cyclones.
So one of the topics coming out of this weekend's just NCAA games period is there was a court storming incident with Wake Forest and Duke. Did you get a chance to see some of the video coming out of that? Yeah,
I saw it. It's a weird dynamic to even be faced with. Something's going to have to occur. When it's a game like that, Wake Forest against Duke, North Carolina, whatever, those big tight games, you're going to have to make it. I think you're going to have to make an announcement. I think it's going to have to be on the coaching staff. Because even, Wake Forest coach or Duke coach, I don't remember. Someone called a timeout. And, it was a timeout before the end of the game. At that point, you literally have to get on the mic and warn the fans about if you're going to storm the court and that's something that's allowed, allow the players to get off the court because you just don't want to have that, Caitlin Clark situation and Kyle Filipkowski situation, Thankfully, well, we don't know totally what's going on with the Duke player, Filipkowski, but thankfully Caitlin wasn't hurt, to a degree where she was injured really, really bad. But something's going to happen where that does occur one day, and then it's going to be a bad situation to deal with. So if that's going to be the case, where you're going to allow the students to storm the court, it has to be an announcement made. But like I was telling my wife last night, I don't think the kids are really, really focused on the fact of even celebrating with the players. It's more so of this is going to be on ESPN, and this is a court that I probably would never touch put my feet on ever again in life. So they're just blindly running out there and just doing whatever, and that's totally dangerous for everyone that's out there.
Well, I felt like there was a little bit of a double standard with the Caitlin Clark situation. She ran into another fan and then went on the floor, and then on social media it was, oh, she's acting. And then you see Filipkowski get injured, and it's all of a sudden, oh, we have to ban court storming. Well, which is it, guys? Right. Caitlin Clark, for all we know, could have been seriously injured.
Right.
It's got to be the same regardless, right?
Yes. It has to be. And fans are going to do what they're going to do. Trolls are going to be trolls. Whatever the case may be, maybe she didn't, tear her knee up or, twist her ankle or anything like that. But I mean, she could have a burst spleen or something. Like you just can't do that. I don't say that I'm necessarily against the court storming or for it, but it has to be regulated. Like if it's going to happen and it's, if Drake University is playing Iowa State and they're going to, and they beat us, and they're going to storm the court, and that's a rival game for you, and the students probably are going to storm the court. You got to make an announcement. You have to put the security guards in a position to be ready and make that announcement and say, if you're going to storm the court, let the players get off the floor, because it's not only the visiting team, it's the home players. What if one of your home players get, trampled on? So you just don't want to have to deal with that. Something has to go forward to protect everyone. There wasn't an incident in Iowa where a reporter, somebody broke their leg. I forget.
Yeah,
recently.
Randy Peterson.
Right.
I don't know that he was run into. I think he stumbled trying to get
Okay.
away from the crowds, and he fell and broke his leg. Yes, that's
right.
probably been 10 years or so now. It's been a while.
Wow, that was that long ago.
Yeah.
Jeez, but even though the case was, you know, trying to get to safety, he was a person on the floor trying to get to say, what if that's the player trying to get, you know, away and get away to safety. So it's just a dangerous situation to deal with. I remember when we beat the University of Iowa at home, players, you know, fans and stuff were everywhere. Even when we beat Kansas, you know, I remember Roy Williams trying to get my attention, and I'm just thinking he was one of the students that just was on the court, but I was literally just trying to keep myself grounded, you know, feet grounded, little short steps and things like that, because you can trip, you know, you can step on a foot, you can do some of anything, and you know, then there goes the season.
Well, and I was going to ask you that if you recall any particular incident, football or basketball, but probably for you more so basketball, where there was an incident like that, whether you were the home team and it was Hilton fans that were coming out, or if you were the visiting team and the fans were coming out.
Well, it definitely would have been at home in the Hilton. I mean, you know, my first 2 years, we weren't like knocking off any big time teams or whatever on the road or anything like that, or they weren't knocking us off and the fans were storming the court. But definitely against University of Kansas after the end of my sophomore year, and then my junior year when we played Iowa. And like I said, I just remember, you know, just trying to keep myself grounded, watching my steps. You really can't, you know, tell where your teammates or anywhere is at. You just hoping everyone is safe, and you get off the court. You want to celebrate with the fans a little bit, but they're just, you know, they're being fans. They're hopping around, they're jumping around, they're doing whatever. Even if they, you know, broke a leg or twist an ankle, they're going to school next week. You know, you're trying to prepare for the rest of the season.
Well, if Cantrell were a little bit taller, you might have been able to see him.
He probably was the one that was making a hole for everyone to get through.
Well, and we know at Jack Trice, they've moved the student section to more of that southeast corner, and for that purpose alone, because this then allows for the opposing team to have a straight shot to their locker room immediately following the game. And if they get out of there won't be any crossover between the student section that's trying to storm out on Jack Trice and the opposing team, which is probably a good idea in theory, but it has changed the dynamics of Jack Trice and the crowd's participation. I like to have the students a little bit closer to the band or into the band, and creates a little bit of a noise issue when they're in the same corner together.
Yeah, I'm sure they're trying to figure out something that's better for that. I mean, you know, not to brag, but we've really come to, you know, a time in Iowa State football athletics to where we're not, you know, totally surprised about us winning big games in football. I mean, we're making some noise in the Big 12 now, so we're not the, you know, beating Kansas and storming the field. You know, we're pretty much competing with the top dogs in the Big 12 now, so we should be, you know, a lot more, you know, we've been here before type of, you know, thing that's going on. But I do remember the days when they used to break the goalposts and take it down and throw it into the lake. And that was a lot of fun. I never followed them, you know, because Coach Stacey told us you better make for sure you're not in that crowd if that happens. But, you know, those days are gone now.
That's right. Well, it is going to be another big week in cycling athletics with the men and women playing games on Wednesday and Saturday. Make sure that you tune in for those shows. Marcus, it's been good to see you. And that's been another episode of In the Side of the Storm. We'll see you next week.